Good morning. You're listening to WPVM in Asheville, North Carolina, 103.7 on the dial. This is the BLAINESWORLD Show, and we're on each Wednesday at 9 a.m., and you can also watch us on WPVM's Facebook page. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and I'm here in my lovely studio in downtown Fairview, North Carolina. Each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in both Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce Daniel Barber, owner of I Am Sound. And welcome aboard, Daniel. You can wave to all your friends in Facebook world. So
Hey.
That's Daniel with the thumbs up. Thank you, Daniel. And Daniel I love how he describes this, has taken a circuitous career route through social work, social systems, research, computing tech support, video production for nonprofits, political activism, music, and ritual. I thought I did a lot of different things, but you maybe topped me. Since 2014, he's put more focus on helping people who feel stuck or out of tune to explore and express themselves spontaneously and naturally on piano and elsewhere in their lives. Piano improv is a wonderful learning lab for navigating uncertainties of all sorts with confidence, creativity, and grace. And the question I always ask Daniel when I meet somebody for the first time on the air is, in terms of growing up, you grew up where?
In Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay, and so when you were growing up in Fort Worth, Texas, did you always know you wanted to be this musical kind of guy?
I never knew what I wanted to do when I grew up.
And by the way, like me, you probably still don't. Is that correct?
Pretty much.
Right. So you're growing up as a kid. What did you think you wanted to do?
I really have always struggled with that. I never really had a clear sense of what I wanted to do, that was a profound challenge for me, has been throughout my life. And right now, where I am at this stage of the game, it's like I can see why I did all the other crazy things that I did, because it helped to contribute to what I'm doing now. And it feels like the stuff that I'm doing now really is kind of a culmination of all the various things I've learned along the way.
But it's kind of cool, isn't it, that you've done a whole bunch of different things, and I guess learned from each one?
Yeah, absolutely. The social work was great for learning how to listen. We were trained very carefully about how to listen and go to where people are and be where they are, and so I learned a lot about that. The statistics was great to learn about rationality and sort of the ends of rationality, studying that, and video production, storytelling, and the music at Jubilee and other places about sharing music. It's just so many different kinds of experiences that I'm so grateful for.
So what's kind of interesting and caught my attention the first time I heard about you getting into this new thing, whatever you're doing, is I heard about the fact that you could teach people, you told me, how to play the piano in, an hour? Is that what you tell people?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in a second. But talk to me a little bit also what I'm seeing here. So I'm seeing you in front of, it looks like two separate keyboards. What is that?
Yeah, this is the lower layer you're seeing is me actually on the piano.
Right.
And the little visual on the top is a software package that takes the MIDI from the piano and displays it so you can see the notes more easily. So it's a great teaching tool.
So if somebody wanted to learn, I guess it'd be either the piano or the keyboard, right? They could learn either one with you.
Yep.
And so let's talk a little bit about it, because the premise is kind of an interesting one. So even if you have no musical background, you could learn this within an hour, you contend?
Yeah. I can show somebody who's never seen a piano before,
right,
how to improvise on it in all 12 keys in an hour.
Yeah. And have you done that with people?
I've done that now with about 130 to 140 people.
Have you really? And
yeah.
So now, have we gotten to see any as concert pianists in Asheville yet?
There is not a single concert pianist that has come out of this program.
But will there be, or like, so people are learning this. Is there a specific reason they're learning this?
So, there's a lot of different reasons that people would be interested in coming to this. My story was that I always wished that I could improvise. I played classical music as a child, and I was pretty good at it. I was pretty, my fingers worked pretty well, and I could translate the images on the written page to, the patterns on the keyboard, and I was pretty good at it. But I always wanted to improvise. My brother was a jazz player, and we listened to a lot of jazz, and I loved Oscar Peterson and Joe Pass and Wes Montgomery and all those old cats. And I always wished that I could improvise, but I couldn't find anybody that would teach me as a child, because the whole thinking at that time was that you had to develop some level of expertise, technically and on classical before they would even, teach you to improvise. And I just thought that was just the way it was, and I didn't really think much of it until, 20 years later, and I was trying to, well, it wasn't even 20 years later. Throughout my 20s and 30s, I tried to teach myself. I thought I could teach myself, and it's just really hard to teach yourself to play jazz improvisation. And so I just kind of didn't play for 20 years. And I know that now there's a better way.
So how'd you come across this better way?
Well, so you and I know each other through Jubilee, kind
Right.
of, and so I led the band at Jubilee. I got back into music in my 40s and magically got that gig leading the World Beat Band, and so started playing for people and started really getting into it. And along the way, I kind of knew that I would never be the kind of person who would be traveling and being a traveling musician, and I was never going to make much, a lot of money playing music. I just sort of 20 years behind.
Right.
And I enjoyed what I did at Jubilee and the wedding bands and stuff, but I knew that I would probably end up helping other adults get back to the piano and get back into music, because I learned a lot about learning as an adult, and I learned about what's possible as an adult that we used to think you had to be a kid in order to learn, and I found out that that's not really true. And so I had already started this business of helping to help adults get back to the piano, and then I thought of this little technique that it really just kind of came to me. It was like it was just sort of it just sort of showed up in my awareness that, I could show people how to improvise in all 12 keys with this particular approach, and then, of course, I was already working on this business, and of course, in business, it's like, well, how long would it take? 7 pounds in 7 days, right?
Right.
And so I'm like, well, 7 days? And it's like, oh, easy, 7 days. And well, what's next? A day? And I was like, yeah, easy, a day. And well, what's next? An hour? And I went, oh my God, could I actually show people how to do this in an hour? And I had to kind of run through it in my head. It's like, well, I'd need to show them this and this and this. And it's like, yeah, I think I could show people how to do this in an hour. And that was in the fall of 2014, and since then I've shown this to quite a few people.
We'll talk about this in terms of somebody learning it. Do they have to be able to read music?
Nope. There's no theory. There's no chords. There's no note names.
Does being able to read music help?
No.
How cool is this? So I would think this would be great. Who would you recommend should be learning this?
The people that I focus on are people who are at a point in their lives when they just feel like they've kind of they feel stuck. It's like they've maybe they're in a job or a relationship situation that they just kind of feel stuck by, or some other kind of situation they feel stuck and they don't know how to move forward. And they've tried to work through their old patterns. They've spent thousands of dollars in therapy and they keep doing the same stuff and all that. And this is really what this work is about, is to help people really connect in with sound as a way to have a different experience of their own thoughts and have a different experience of navigating a moment, and just watch it and then learn how to consciously shift that gradually and to move from like being really super present to moving into the next moment that is more in the direction they'd most like to go.
Would this be good for somebody who wants to write songs or music?
Yeah, I mean, it's really good for people who want to do new things, to live differently, to have different kinds of conversations with people, and to learn how to respond to people more graciously when they feel triggered, or anything that people would like to move through into a new way of experiencing themselves. This is a really nice learning lab for practicing different ways of negotiating things.
Well, now let me ask you, if somebody wants to learn this, the cool thing about it, it seems to me, is that you can learn it like I'm watching you now, and you could learn it without even first buying a piano or a keyboard. You don't have to go out tomorrow to buy the equipment.
You do need to have a keyboard. Yeah.
You do. Okay, so I can't learn it on the computer.
No, that wouldn't be great. It's really good if you can have something that sounds good enough to you that you can really listen to the sounds and enjoy what you're hearing. Because part of it is the power of sound to help us get out of our heads a little bit and into our more direct experience and get into the present, because the power of sound is so good at just helping us get beyond our monkey minds.
Now I'm watching you. I see the piano. That's a piano you're playing?
Yeah.
But the keyboard, are keyboards structured the exact same way as pianos, or some of them are?
Yes, they are.
So just ballpark, you're not in the business of selling keyboards, but how much does a keyboard typically? Can you get an inexpensive keyboard?
Yes, and you can. Keyboards cost anywhere from $50 to $50,000.
Right.
And so you can get you can get keyboards these days with pretty nice speakers on them that sound really pretty good for $300, $400.
It's a nice thing about this too, and you can get a used one or not a really nice one just to see if you like it. But you're not going to go bankrupt by trying this out.
Right.
So talk a little bit about the process, Daniel. So somebody is watching on Facebook Live, or they're hearing this now. They're saying, this guy can teach me an hour how to play the piano, which is, it's a great line, by the way. It almost, it sounds like an advertising line. What happens? So I sign up, and what happens? And the first lesson I come, I have my keyboard, I'm ready to learn. What happens at that point in time?
So there are a couple of different options that I have for people. I have an online course that actually started today that goes through my deeper process. I call it Sound Yourself. And this 12 Keys with Ease technique is part of that course. And so what they would do is the first module is all about listening. And so we just spend the whole first module and the whole first week diving into a meditation practice that I created to help people notice the difference between the sounds that they're hearing and the mind that steps in and, interprets what we're hearing. And so I have a meditation that helps to just really get into deep listening. And then the second module is about drumming and rhythm. And then the third module is about pitch. And so we start looking at pitch. And the practice itself is really a matter of just deciding on a key. And, like I say, you'll learn how to play in all the different 12 keys. But let's just say we'll play in the key of 3 flats. And those are the notes that you play in the key of 3 flats. And the thing is that as long as you know which 7 notes to play at any given time, they'll generally sound good together.
They do, yeah.
And so, as long as you know which 7 notes to play, it's kind of like sky's the limit. You just start exploring your own innate musicality. You play stuff that appeals to you and that maybe you want to hear in the current moment. And I suggest listening to the top note and the bottom note. The top note, and then the stuff that happens in the middle. I just play a bunch of notes because I know it'll sound interesting.
What's really cool, just watching you, is seeing the two things at once. Seeing the piano, and then seeing what happens as you play the piano. You developed all that yourself? I mean, it's fantastic.
No. I mean, I found the software to do the blue thing there.
Right.
I found that. Isn't that cool?
Yeah, very cool.
And that really helps my students because they can see just what I'm playing, and it helps them to to see more easily. Like right there, I can show you that those are the notes to play in the key of 3 flats, and so you can just see it real easily. And there's the notes to play in the key of 3 sharps.
Now, in terms of, you said your students, talk about the age range of people you've worked with. In terms of certain age is good to learn this at?
I really think that this could be something that 5-year-olds could learn. It's super, super simple. It doesn't take much time at all. It takes about an hour to show it to people. And then I recommend a practice that helps them sort of practice each key over the course of the next couple of weeks. So really in a couple of weeks, you can sort of see what we're doing here. And so it's really quite simple. And so anybody at any age could do it. I've got people that I work with who are in their 20s and 30s, and I've got people who are in their 70s.
Yeah, so. You just added another dimension to it, though. I didn't realize that once you learn this, it would be helpful if you practice a little bit.
Yes. Yes. And what I recommend to my people is to do 10 minutes 5 days a week. 10 minutes a day,
nice.
5 days a week. So it's super easy to sit down and spend a few minutes. And just as long as you do that on a consistent basis, 5 days a week, and I encourage you to take those 2 days off, that's all it really, I think, is kind of a good approach.
Well, I'm very impressed with, Daniel, is the fact what you just said, in that you're not scaring people off. In other words, I have to believe, even for me, 10 minutes anybody can do with their eyes closed. But I imagine, too, what's exciting for you as a teacher is probably once they do the 10 minutes, they're encouraged to do more, and they probably do, but you're not scaring them, which I think was brilliant, because if you told me, Blaine, you're only going to get proficient at this, you have to do an hour a day, I'm already going to be turned off. Let me ask you, we have a mutual friend, and I'll give a shout out to him in just a second, but he's always told me that he played the piano a little bit in high school, and hasn't played for like 40, 50 years since. Would this be a good thing for people to come back to?
Absolutely.
Because I'll give the shout out, a mutual friend, Brian Biro, has always told me he wants to eventually play the piano again, but he hasn't played it for all these years. So this will be his big opportunity?
Absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
So we'll try to get Brian. He's always said that he wants to, and he hasn't played for 50 years. Do you have some people doing that? Some of your students, are they people who have come back after all these years?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the fun, there's so many fun aspects of this. And one of them is that this approach is so completely different from anything anybody has ever seen before or heard of before that they can just find themselves like delighted. There's somebody at Jubilee, Karen Goggin. You know Karen?
I don't think so. Yeah.
She's been a piano player all her life. She was a piano performance major, and in college, and she took this one 12 keys class a few years ago, and she was just blown away. She said, "How did you think of this?" And so she spent all her life playing the piano, and this thing had never occurred to her, and it had never occurred to me until 2014, and so it really is such a different approach that it becomes super easy to actually sit down and start playing.
And talk about where this takes you. So somebody signs up, we'll talk about the process. So to begin with, to find out more information about it, if anybody's watching or listening, best bet, Daniel, is to do what?
Go to danielbarber.com and just look through the homepage. There's a little bit of info and sort of a little story on the homepage that people can sort of get a feel for the spirit of this work. And the 12 keys part is the thing that makes a lot of more fundamentally interesting work possible, because usually the challenge with piano improvisation is that it's so complex. It just takes so much brain power, and then it does take an hour a day for 10 years or something, and what this little technique does is it makes it so easy to actually navigate the whole, like which 7 notes to play, that it frees up a whole lot of your brain space to focus in on, like, what am I noticing now as I play this, and now what note do I want to play, and so it frees up your awareness to start exploring yourself at deeper levels.
You mentioned 12 keys. I think you mentioned that a couple of times. A naive question, but what are the 12 keys?
So here's me practicing my scales. Okay, right. So this is the key of no sharps and no flats.
Right.
This is the key of 1 sharp, 2 sharps, 3 sharps, 4 sharps, 5 sharps. And then here's the key of 1 flat, 2 flat, 3 flats, 4 flats, and 5 flats. And this is the key of all sharps and all flats. So that's the 12 keys. And so any of those different sets of 7 notes will sound good together.
Okay. So the key is, so if you learn those, that's the basis of the whole system?
It's the basis of the whole system.
Yeah. But I see a whole bunch, there are more than 12 keys. I see a whole bunch of other things floating around out there. What are all those other?
They're just copycats.
Yeah. So I mean,
so you've got that
right.
set there, and you've got that set there, and you've got that set there. So once you sort of know the basic pattern, it replicates throughout the whole thing.
Could you get by just playing the basic pattern?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can do some of this work that I do just by playing the white notes.
Right. And I wonder, like, that'd be interesting. Are there musicians out there, I guess, who only play have you ever seen a piano player only play the white notes?
Yeah.
Or could you play only the black notes? Could
Yeah.
you just play just black notes?
Yeah, you can.
I mean, that's interesting to do that. I mean, so is there music written that way for just
Yes.
white note? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, what about Daniel? I always wondered too that, see, some piano players, you have to have this wide range, to get the whole keyboard. Your system, you don't have to be able to play the whole keyboard?
You don't have to. The thing about what this approach is about is really focusing on what it is that you want to play. It's about playing your music. And the thing that one of the big I think evolutions that this approach makes possible is that we've spent so much of our lives trying to be like somebody else, trying to play somebody else's music. It's like, yeah, I wish I could play like Bruce Hornsby or Chick Corea or Oscar Peterson, and it's like we spend so much of our whole experience of learning and growing by trying to be something that we're not, and like go from here to over there. And what this is about is learning how to lean into where you are right now and find the places that you can explore now with what you know now, and then live in faith that as you do that, you'll learn stuff, and then in another week or 6 months or a year, you'll actually know more, and you'll be able to do stuff that you know then.
What's cool about this, listening to you, reminds me of I think a mutual friend of ours too. Richard Schulman.
Yeah.
And he does beautiful meditation music,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm listening to you, and this seems a great way, I guess, if somebody wanted to listen to their own music, they could eventually learn how to compose their own music.
Yeah, absolutely, and compose it on the fly, and just be able to be completely spontaneous and to do your own thing in any given moment. Like to go over friends. I used to not play for people because after I had stopped playing for a while, I didn't have anything practiced and sort of worked up,
Right.
and so I stopped playing for people because I hadn't been practicing lately. But this makes it possible to just sit down anytime and start tinkering.
Very cool.
And so you don't have to have anything practiced or worked up. You can just start exploring and see what comes out.
What do you recommend to people who are tinkering and want to have a record of it, to record it, or how do you know what you wrote if you just tinkered with it?
Yeah, you can record, and if there's some things that you do that you like that you'd like to turn into a song, then you can sort of work with the foundations of what you kind of started with there, like a little note, an audio notepad. And in fact, I kind of do sort of recommend to people who would like to use this to write songs is just sort of get into the habit of recording everything you play. And then you sort of get over the whole idea of, somebody's listening, because that's a big one, And then you just kind of develop this habit of exploring and improvising and being okay when things don't sound the way you'd like for them to, but you're still exploring and then just continuing to play. And then, if you come up with some gold in there, then you can work with it later.
Have you worked with any songwriters?
Yeah, I'm actually working with a couple now.
Because I would imagine this would be a great skill for a songwriter to develop, just to listen to music in a relatively simplistic way.
Yeah.
Have you ever written any songs?
Oh yeah. I've got a CD actually. It's called Marsupial Road Trip, I haven't actually talked much about that over the years, but I put it out in 2014 also, and I've got a bunch of songs on there that I really like, and so it'd be great to share that with people if they'd be interested in hearing it.
Now, what's the name of it again?
Marsupial Road Trip.
Okay, and this is available. They can find information on your
on my site.
Your site too. And these are all songs you had written.
Yeah, I wrote them all and recorded them all. I was the main musician on all the songs, and there's other people that were on the album with me. River Gagarin was on there, Jeff Sipe and Michael Hines and Sherman and Paula and James from the World Beat Band and a bunch of folks on there.
Do you miss performing?
A little bit. It's super fun to perform, and so I kind of miss it. But I also, I feel like I kind of got what I needed from that experience, which was to feel comfortable sharing with people and feel comfortable playing music for people, because it brings such joy, and it's such a beautiful thing to share music. It's just a wonderful experience, and so I feel like I'm really full right now from having done it, and now I'm really excited about helping other people to realize that, I can do this too, and that just thrills me to no end, because I could help thousands and people do that, and that'd be awesome.
Because one of the things I always got a kick out of watching perform or with the band is it just seemed like you guys were having a good time, and I can see almost in front of me, it was a fun experience. Yeah. And let's talk about this 1 hour. I just love the premise. 1 hour piano. You can learn the piano. So what's the name of the program overall?
Overall, it's called Sound Yourself. Sound Yourself.
And describe. You started talking about the fact. So there are many different ways if we want to hook up with you. So we can. So, what are the kinds of programs that if I work with Daniel that I would take advantage of?
So there's a couple of main ways, and one is that I'm building a community on what I call the Vibe Tribe, and
I love it.
It's on my site. You can find it at members.danielbarber.com, and right now there's a little mini course in there that's free, so that's one way to plug in, and that mini course is about what I consider to be the essential skill for your genuine liberation, and the ways that 3 ways that the piano can help you to learn that, and then there's an online course in Sound Yourself. I call Sound Yourself Solo. So there's an online self-paced course, and then I do one-on-one work with people also. So there's 2 or 3 different kind of ways to plug in, and you can get to all of them through danielbarber.com.
Okay, at the website itself.
Yep.
And so do you have some people also, we were talking about before, haven't played the piano for 50 years or 30 years. Do you have a lot of people coming back to pick it up again?
Yeah. It's really kind of interesting, because because this was my story too, and I figured, well, if it was my story, then it must be a lot of people. And it's true, there's a lot of people that had piano lessons, and believe it or not, I get several people along the way that say, yeah, when I had piano lessons as a kid, I had this teacher that hit my hands when I didn't do something right, and it's like, really? And so a lot of people, my camera went away, but it'll come back. I'll bring it back.
Okay.
A lot of people just, quit for one reason or another. Not everybody had a bad experience, but they quit because that traditional way of learning the piano is it's just a really tall mountain to climb, and it's just not sustainable unless you're going to do it forever and ever. And so there's a lot of people that are wanting to come back in a different kind of way.
And if I can put you on the spot here, will you at least pledge on the air here that if somebody signs up to work with you, you won't hit them over the knuckles with a ruler?
Yes, I'll raise my left hand and my right hand.
Okay. And lastly, so this can be done virtually, which you're offering people. Can it be done in person? Do you work with people now in person?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have a preference?
No, actually I don't. It's the one-on-one work is probably a little bit better in person, just because everything is better in person. and there are a lot of people that I'm working with now. I've got people in Europe and California
Wow.
and, all over the continent. And I've had people in Australia and Asia, actually. So I love that aspect of it. But yeah, if we're going to do one-on-one work, we can do it. We can do it online, and we can also do it if we're in the Asheville area. You can do it one-on-one in person.
And lastly, Daniel, if you repeat the information, if people want to get more information, is best bet is?
DanielBarber.com. BARBER.com. Yep.
I'd like to thank you for being my guest this first half hour on the Blaine's World Show. Took us a while to set it up, but I finally now know how I can learn how to play the piano in an hour.
Yes, you do. Yes,
okay,
you do.
Got it.
I'd love to hear from you.
Okay, Daniel, this was great. Thanks a lot. I hope to see
Thank you,
you
Blaine.
actually in person sometime in the next couple of years, buddy.
That would be great, man.
Okay, you be well. Thanks again.
You too. Thank
okay,
you.
as Daniel kind of works his way out of the studio, let me see if I can get it. There we go. I'm going to bring in our next guest, and as she works her way into the studio, there she is. I'll be with you in 1 second, April. I think she's coming on board. I should mention to people that they're listening to WPVM, and our mission is to foster community through programming that cultivates dialogue to inform and entertain. The station provides the medium for artists, businesses, community leaders, and nonprofits to share their voice on live radio. Listeners are invited to help support WPVM's efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution. You can do so by going to the website, WPVMFM.org, and looking at the donate option on the upper right-hand side. My second guest is the amazing April Johnson, who's an artist, photographer. Her business is April Johnson Portraiture. And April, you can wave to all your fans and friends on Facebook world. So
Hello,
if you're watching, you see April. I mean, this is really exciting because I've been trying to have April as a guest for quite a while, so I'm glad we finally got you on board.
Thank
April
you.
Johnson is an artist photographer with 20 plus years of experience. So you started what? You started at the age of 3, was that it, or 4? when
Thank you, Blaine. Thank you.
Okay, 5. Her home-based studio is located in the Serene Mountains of Hendersonville in North Carolina. She has a dual BFA degree, a fine arts photography degree from School of Visual Arts in New York City, and a second, a fine arts degree from Kent State University. She has an undeniable passion for animals, capturing and celebrating them with her portraiture. And her stuff is, as you'll see in just a second, absolutely amazing. April, the question is, when you were a kid, you grew up where?
In Ohio.
Okay.
Small community, Stowe, Ohio.
Okay, and when you were growing up in Ohio, did you always know you wanted to be, I guess, first of all, a photographer? When did you decide that?
Oh, the photography, my dad was a photographer, always interested. So he influenced me. And I picked up a camera in my 20s after art school.
So that was your first camera was in the 20s? Your first real camera?
But yes, but I had already done the fine art stuff, and I said, boy, this is easier.
Yeah. So that was, you had a Kodak Brownie? Was that your first camera?
Oh, come on now.
No.
Polaroids were out.
No. Do you still have your first camera?
No, I've lost track of all that stuff.
What was your first camera?
It's always been, well, it had been Canon. So for 30 some years, actually, I've been using Canon until recently I went into Sony. So I'm in the mirrorless world, and I had to buy all new lenses, bodies, and I'm loving it. It's beyond Canon in my mind.
So talk a little bit about your, I guess your business, because it's just always amazed me. The very first time I saw your work, I was blown away, and I've now seen several people have used your work too. It was primarily, even though you do photograph other things, you chose to concentrate on animals. Is that correct?
That's right.
What was that? What was your reasoning?
Well, in New York City, I did commercial photography for architectural abstracts for corporations like Apple, and it was a lot of banks and a lot of insurance companies, that kind of thing, annual reports. But when I moved here, it was not the same. It wasn't corporate. It was calmer. And then I lost my little dog. It was a King Charles Cavalier called Remy, which inspired me to say, boy, I don't have any really great portraits of my Remy. So I set up this business to photograph people's dogs. And I think that it's important that we have and honor our animals. They're like our children. So I wanted people to have that. So I started in grooming salons on the floor in their front lobby. And then I moved into a couple of other businesses. I was the Champagne Bar, the Books Exchange down in Asheville, and Indigo Hotel. And then I worked with a lot of nonprofits, you know, from Brother Wolf to Charlie's Angels, and gave a lot of work to them and time. So it was just fun, endless fun.
Now, talk about the process of photographing dogs as opposed to, for example, people. You know,
Oh,
do you have,
it's
do you have,
crazy.
do you have a preference?
Well, the dogs are a lot more challenging, and in a way that is the fun, because you have to get that shot. And so I have 2 lanyards full of like hunting whistles and clickers, and I have treats, and I am a mess when I'm photographing. I'm down on the floor, eye level, trying to get all these noises, and they get bored quickly, so I have to move to the next toy while I'm clicking a camera and doing this stuff. It's hilarious, but we get the shot. You know, it usually works out.
Now, you mentioned dogs. Do you photograph other animals also?
I love horses. I love to photograph horses. So when the World Equestrian Games came, I was down in the pit with all the other photographers. I had a press pass, was able to get the power right in front of me. And then I do a lot of wildlife. So I should say I did a lot of wildlife. I'm not so much a hiker anymore, but I was doing some wild bear photos, you know.
Do you do any cats?
Cats. Oh, yes, cats.
Yeah. Well, and talk about it then, or I guess rather than talk about it, if you could, April, we were looking off the air. Some of your work is just almost breathtaking. We'll separate it into 2 parts. We'll talk about the pictures right now, and then we'll talk about the painting in just a little bit.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit about some of the pictures now you've done in the past and still could do for people, if you would. Can you show
Should I
some?
share some?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Does this work?
Yeah, we did before. See if we get lucky. Okay.
Is
Great.
that good?
And yeah, I'll describe, by the way, before Abel talks about it. So if you're listening to the radio, we're just going to describe what you're seeing. If you're watching on Facebook Live, you'll be able to see her work. But Abel, just talk a little bit about some of the things people are seeing when they look at this. And I can't believe it, but these are all actual photographs you've taken. Is that correct?
Yeah, I photograph each one of the center photo with the couch, and there's what, 7 puppies and the mom and dad.
Blow that
So
up a little bit, if you can.
Yes, I photographed them separately,
There you go.
and then I composited them.
Oh
onto
my
this
goodness.
couch.
Wait, this was a photograph we're looking at?
Yeah, so you know, you have to get them looking straight in the camera.
Oh
They're
my
all behaving pretty good for being 6 weeks old.
Wait, yeah. Now, unfortunately, if you listen to the radio, you can't see this, but Abel, you describe it. It's one of the most cutest. Go back to that other one. It was just one of the great photos.
Sure. Let's see.
The 8 dogs on a couch, and I didn't know that you're sharing a trade secret. So this wasn't the. Go back to the one if you can. There it is. So this wasn't. You didn't get them to pose all 8 this way. I thought you did.
No. It looks nice and comfy, but no, that was not easy to composite. Each one was separate on the couch, and it worked out that I could tuck them all in there.
Now, is this somebody's? Are these 8 dogs that somebody owned?
Yeah, it's a breeder in town. And so she's got these lovely little I think they're Bernese Doodle dogs.
Right.
And so we just did all the pups from one litter, and then the mom and pop. And she's got a new facility she's building, and she's going to use this in the lobby.
By the way, this is one of the most beautiful photos I've ever seen, but most amazing photos. So again, it's almost breathtaking, you know, and I can see where she'd want to use it in a lobby. See these 8 adorable dogs, and they're on a couch, and I can't believe you got the eye contact. You know, they're all looking at you. Phenomenal.
Thank you.
This is,
You know.
wow. So this is one photo. Just when we're still on the animals, talk a little bit about some of the other animal photos you've done, April, if you would.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is a lady also in town. She had Cavaliers, King Charles Cavaliers, and this one had just the most sincere little expression. So I set up the lighting and a backdrop and just worked with this one and kept photographing until I probably do about 100 photos of each dog. She brought 14 dogs, and so we went through it. And then I do a lot of horse equine, people that have horses. And so I enjoy going to their stables and doing these black backgrounds, getting rid of all the clutter and the lighting and everything in the background.
It's interesting. So April's showing some of her photography work. And by the way, before we get off this one, so if people want to see your work, if they're interested in working with you as a photographer for the animals, best bet to find out more information is what website, April?
Yes, www.johnsonportraiture.com.
Okay, and they'll see all different animals, and they can look some of the stuff you've done?
Yes, they can see it's broken down into wild animals and pets, and then I also photograph people.
Well, show that one, if you would, of where you had the, took my breath away, the lion. Show that one.
Okay.
So if anybody, if they're listening, if you have a pet lion available, April's the person to contact. And just talk about this. So she's showing a picture, some of her photographs, but this one is just, this is one of the most amazing photos you'll ever see. Now that's how you took that one, but it's this white lion, which you don't see too many of. And there it is. Okay, great. And just so, and we'll get it blown up large size. So beautiful white lion. Where'd you get that picture?
This was taken from Tiger World. It's a relatively unknown little zoo it's near Charlotte, North Carolina. And this one came from the Kruger National Park in Africa. They rescue these because they're so beautiful and rare. They only are born and raised in Kruger National Park in South Africa. So they're trying to export them to places that will protect and raise them. And they're also trying to increase the population at this Tiger World. So they have a female in with, this is Michael. The name of the lion is Michael. He's 7 years old. He's in his prime. And oh my gosh, he was showing off for me. And he turned around and looked squarely at me and said, "Did you get it?"
Well,
he's amazing.
Well, again, if you're watching it on Facebook Live, or even if you're listening to the radio, come back and check out April's website for this one picture alone. And that's pretty cool, April. You actually got in the cage with the lion there and shot that picture?
Yeah, right. No. I had to photograph through 2 chain link fences. It was doubled. But, you get your camera up close to the chain link, everything gets diffused and you don't have that in the way. And a long lens, zoom lens, you can get in there and photograph it.
I don't know if you entered that in any competitions, or hopefully you did, but that is some outstanding photo. Do people kind of love that photo?
Oh, yes, they do. I've got a lot of people have bought them. They've used them for the Christmas cards. There's some religious feelings come through with this, and so I've sold it quite a few times.
And talk about what you just mentioned, April. I didn't realize this. So if you like April's work, which you will, guaranteed if you see it, you can get prints, I guess, of it. You can get, I didn't know you get Christmas, you get all sorts of, what can you use it for?
Yeah, I'll do canvas wraps, gallery wraps, which is simple and easy to hang on your wall, ready with the hanging hardware. I can put them in frames, canvas in frames. I can do paper prints and metal prints. And then I do cards too.
Lovely. So just a few more animals and we'll shift gears a little bit. But this is her photographic work, and you just have to see this to believe it.
This is a wild black bear. Woke her up. She was just listening to me. I kept talking to her for 45 minutes. I think I was 15 feet away from her, and she was not nervous, and she was very lazy. So I got lucky.
In your work, do you become it's almost, I guess, in some respects, you become an animal communicator as well?
In a way, I feel like I do. I just try to feel rather than think, and watch myself, of course. I'm always at a distance. I have a long lens. And I do look for that eye contact. So in a way, I'm kind of communicating to them. I want their attention.
By the way, just describe this photo we're looking at.
This is Michael, the same white
Oh, the
lion.
same white line. Yeah.
But he went over and sniffed the pee from the female, and this is called a grimace. When cats smell the urine of a female, that's what they do. And I just happened to catch it.
Again, I can only encourage people, because you don't have the treat that we're having on Facebook Live, but I can encourage people to go to April's website she just mentioned. We'll mention it again, but you're going to be blown away by these pictures of these animals.
Oh.
Just outstanding, April. Love it. So let's talk a little bit about, though, shifting gears, and you were telling me off the air that all of a sudden you've been doing this work for a whole bunch of years, concentrating on animals, but doing people and other things as well. And then all of a sudden, COVID struck, and
Yeah.
that brought about a change in your thinking. How so?
Well, I couldn't get in front of my clients with their dogs, to photograph them in my home studio. And I didn't want to go to their home without knowing what their feeling is about COVID. So I wondered if I could get back into painting. So I began asking them to send me photographs of their dog, their favorite photo. And then I would use their images to paint these portraits. So I started painting from their photos. Sometimes, like this guy, Teddy, he lives right down the street. I went over to the home, and outdoors I photographed this dog, and then I brought it back and painted it.
Now talk a little bit about the process, because again, to go back to that one you just had up.
Yeah, this guy, it's Australian cattle dog, and it's got triple layer fur, and it was a real challenge that I loved. You need to get the undercoat, that coarse outer white wiry stuff, and then the softness of the other fur. It's just a really wonderful kind of thing to get their expression just right. The background is all done with a brayer scraper, and then all the fine detail with smaller brushes.
Now talk about this one. So looking at a dog, but to me it's like almost breathtaking. So this is, you took the picture and then you painted this?
Yes,
Because
but
it looks like a photograph.
Yeah, I start my computer, it takes the picture in, and I do take it into Photoshop, and I get myself lined up with the pose and the outline and the values, and I use Photoshop for a great deal of the brushwork, and then I'll print it and then paint again on top of that, and it's on a stretcher, canvas stretcher on canvas, and then it gets delivered.
Do you have a preference now as to just taking the picture of the animals or now doing the painting? Do you have a preference?
Now I really enjoy the freedom of the painting. I'm able to really do things that photography doesn't allow. I can change a background, and I can just add certain elements to a painting that I never could do with a photograph. Usually you get what you see in the camera, but this is fun. I can take some time and really move through images to, like this one. I changed the trees in the background totally. And, so it's a lot of fun. I think painting for me is more enticing at this point. And with COVID still around, it works. I'm sort of a homebody. I'm able to stay in my house and to work like this, but I am exhibiting in 4 galleries around town. So that keeps me getting out of the house once in a while.
And we're showing, by the way, as April's talking about it, and I'm loving this, we're just seeing some of her work.
Oh.
It seems also with the artwork, though, it's almost more work because you have to take the photograph and then you also have to do the painting. Is that?
It is more work. I do enjoy it more, and it costs the client more, but it's a wonderful keepsake that honors your pets. It's just a really sweet portrait, I think.
Yeah, no, it's just go through a couple more, and I'll just comment on. But we're just seeing some of the. Now, what again? But I can't believe this, that you're saying this is a painting, but it looks like a photograph.
Labradoodle.
Yeah, what a cute So it's a paint. So you call it a painting? It's a painting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, my really what it's called hand rendered.
right,
Every inch on the canvas is painted by me by hand.
right.
Hand rendered, mixed media, and I use oils and sometimes acrylics.
I imagine April too. This must make one of the world's greatest gifts for somebody.
Yeah.
Especially like, do you ever give it? Is it ever give it as a gift where they surprise the owner or they don't know that they're getting it?
Oh yes, I recently shipped to Sweden,
Yeah.
um, and it was the kids bought a painting for their mother. The dog had passed, and so
Oh,
we went ahead and shipped it overseas. Got to them in a rolled tube. It's rolled up in a tube, and then they just take it to their framer and have it canvas stretched and framed if they want.
yeah. The person's reaction
So
must have been incredible to see this.
this, yeah,
Because you think now we're looking at this is a cow or a bull. What
a
is
red
this?
Angus bull. He's
Bull.
about 1,600 pounds.
So this was somebody they raised a little pet bull or what was this?
He lives right down the street from me, and I would drive by him, and he was just standing out against the green field so beautifully. I introduced myself to the family, and they said, "Sure, you can come take photos." So I photographed him, and then I came back and painted him.
Yeah.
And gosh, they just loved it. So I love putting some green in him, and just working with paint. It's just so much more freer.
Well, the thing I like about the fact that working with you, and you told me this off the air, that if ever I, had you come to our house or show us with our cat or something, you could also add in like a full head of hair for me. You could. You know,
Yes, I can add a full head of hair for you. Absolutely. Whatever
okay.
color you want it to be,
Okay.
too.
Especially with the painting. So describe beautiful bird. Describe this.
This is this is a bluebird, and I put them in this very lush kind of jewel tone colors in green environment that just set off his coat, his color of his feathers. So I call him Bluebird in Paradise. And so yeah, this was a fun one. It was a lady that's wanted to buy a gift for her mother for Christmas. And this is what I painted for her. She just said, "Give me a bluebird." And that's what I ended up doing.
The beautiful thing about this too, as you're describing it, is I imagine, and we're guilty of this also, we have pictures of our cats, past cats, but they're all little small pictures,
Yes.
and you can't really, you can see them and get a kick out of it, but to actually see it and framed on canvas, it's just incredible. What was this?
This is a nuthatch. So he's out there I have a porch with a tree and a 3 or 4 feeders. So this guy is a red-breasted nuthatch. He looks a little blue, but that's daylight kind of, as a photographer, you're aware of the blue sky reflection. And that's kind of what happened there with my photo. And then I just left it in there because the color was so pretty.
Talk about how you do your artwork. Is this something you do every single day for a couple hours, or do you just devote yourself to a full day? How do you do this?
I like to do one at a time and just really feel the animal, whether it's somebody's dog that passed or something new, or even like my birds. I'll just concentrate on one painting a day. Sometimes it takes up to 3 weeks to finish something. It's depends on the level of intricacy, but I do like to dive in one at a time and just really give it a lot of attention.
Now, is this something, April, in terms of recommending other photographers or recommending other people, almost like they tell writers that, you have to do this every day? Some people get up first 6 o'clock in the morning and work, develop their skills and just have to keep writing every day. Is this something, if you're a photographer, you should be doing every day, shooting pictures every day?
Oh yes, I think it trains your eye. It keeps your eye really, you learn what attracts your eye. You should pay attention to what you're attracted to. Go through your film. film. I'm still,
Right.
in the old days. But, you go through your images and you see the repeat kind of things that you enjoy photographing, and then go there, do yourself a favor. There's something there for you. And to get out often will show you what you like and what you enjoy. And that repeat use of your camera, getting used to your equipment. It's so important to know quickly how to put your hands on settings that can work with a flying bird or something that's, steady on the ground. Here's a kitty for you.
It's just, as you know, our family were big into cats, but that's a painting of a cat, and how you got that expression is just breathless. The only bad thing I'm thinking, April, I better not show this to my wife because she's going to ask me to get, portraits of her cats. So you can actually, which is really cool, you mentioned you could do it with dead people, so you can take pictures of people from many years ago and then I wouldn't say bring them to life again, but boy, it seems to. I'm looking at this picture of a cat, and it's just mesmerizing how the cat's like looking at me. It's what a view. And it just,
but it comes, contact.
But it comes, eye contact, right? But it comes alive more than even sometimes a photograph does. I've never seen it quite that way. Does it pop more than a photograph, you think?
I do. I think I can just, like, this color,
right,
is just so much more emphasized by the painting rather than just a photograph. The photograph, he was sitting on concrete, and no big deal. Those eyes were mesmerizing, whether it was the photo or this painting. But I just really, really love this cat, his eyes, Joseph.
It's cool, April, listening to you, and look at this. Describe this picture.
This is a puppy, and Afghan hounds, when they're a puppy, they have what's called monkey whiskers, and the fur goes straight out from their nose, their nozzle. And it just is the funniest thing. They have that, so they call it monkey whiskers. And this lady wanted her precious little dog who's out there on the little bed that she has on the back porch. So I painted this black and white Afghan hound puppy, and it's just charming. It's just a cute little thing.
If somebody wants you to do a painting, so I'll ask you, I guess, one of two ways. So they could call and have you come out and take photographs of it, or they could send the picture. What do you prefer doing?
It depends. If they're having trouble getting the picture on their camera, if something they've taken already and it's out of focus, or there's bright highlights or deep dark blacks, there's no detail in those areas. So I will offer, if I'm local, to come out and photograph their dog for them, or have them bring their dog to me, and then we'll have what we need for the painting. And they'll have the photograph too.
Let me ask you one other question in terms of the whole industry, that now everybody thinks they're a photographer, because they have a cell phone.
Yes.
Has that made life easier or more difficult for you as an artist?
It's making it easier. People are using cameras that are very intelligent, smart cameras that the camera focuses, the camera kind of blurs out the background. Cameras doing the cell phone cameras are doing really good. So it's better than it used to be. And they're pretty high resolution too, which gives me some detail that I need. So I really prefer doing my own photography, but if I need to, I will go to them. And here's that same puppy in a chair. And it was a dark photo. And then I do some paintings of bears. There is this is new. This is a white buffalo. Someone had a spirit animal, and they wanted me to paint their white buffalo for their fireplace art.
And the nice thing, again, I guess working with, this is adorable. I guess the nice thing working with you, April, is the fact that even if their shot is not perfect, or even if the pet's still not with them, you can still work with it, or I won't say improve the looks, but make it look, you can, I guess, almost make any pet look good. Would you say that's true?
I would say that's true. And if they can send me like 3 or 4 different images to use as a reference, I can pick up details that might be missing on the main posed photo and incorporate what I need to fill in, so,
Well,
getting anatomy also is really important. So learning about horses, there's the back end, the middle section, and the front section. Boy, it was a learning curve just getting the anatomy on some of these.
I have to say I'm impressed. April, one last time, if folks want to find out more about you, the best bet is to do what?
Website, and it's www.apriljohnsonportraiture.com. And I'm on Facebook, same name, April Johnson Portraiture, and I'm on Instagram.
Okay. I'd like to thank you, April, for being my guest this second half hour.
My
Also to
pleasure.
Daniel Barber, my guest the first half hour on the BLAINESWORLD show. Amy Prisnash for being my producer for the last time. We'll miss you, Amy. Look forward to having you join me next Wednesday at 9 a.m. here on WPVM 103.7 in Asheville. And also you can watch us on WPVM's Facebook page. Thanks again, April. I'm sorry it took us so long to get together, but I appreciate it.
I loved it. Thank you. Bye.